Hello. Today's stories come from r/MaliciousCompliance. We've got 4 stories today, 2 large and 2 small that pack a big punch. We'll start with car dealer tells me I should waste my time and go to a competing dealer because they also won't give me the price they list on their website. This is a rather long, detailed story, so if you're the impatient sort, please skip to the bottom. Though note you're missing out on fun details. This took place 8 years ago when I was buying my first new car, not just a new to me car. I spent a good amount of time researching the options available, both in terms of other models from other manufacturers and option packages on the car in which I was most interested. So I knew exactly what I wanted coming in the door. In 2014, car dealer websites hadn't quite gotten to the level of borderline bait and switch trickery you see these days. So if a dealer's website said they had a particular car on the lot at a particular price, they almost certainly did. There were several in the region that matched what I was looking for, one specifically at my existing dealership. This wasn't a smaller dealership, it was one of the largest in the Northern Virginia area for this particular brand. I had had a reasonably good experience with their service department overall and figured I'd give their sales department a chance to shine. That was my first mistake. I showed up on a Wednesday after work. It was early June, so with the mercury being in the upper 90s, I was dressed in a comfortable but still very presentable combination of a polo shirt and khaki shorts. When I entered the sales side of the dealership, I could see what appeared to be all the salespeople in a conference room laughing and joking while taking scissors to the tie of one of the men present. Later, I found out that was a rite of passage after making your first sale. I waited around for a minute or two as the conference room had glass walls, and it would be impossible not to notice me as I'm not exactly a small fellow at 6 feet 6 inches tall. When no one came out to greet me, I went up to the receptionist's desk and said, "Hi, I'm interested in model of car, and there's one in stock I'd like to see." Her response, without even looking up from her phone, was, "Okay." I stood there for another 20 seconds or so and then politely asked, "Would someone be able to show me that car?" This finally prompted her to look up from her phone. She looked me up and down, scoffed a bit, and said she'd go and get someone. I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, hoping that things would turn around. That was my second mistake. The receptionist came back with what looked like the youngest, most wet behind the ear salesperson she could find, as evidently I wasn't worth the time of the more experienced folks. I explained that I was interested in a car that their website said they had in stock and provided him with the printout showing the stock number, price, and all other pertinent details. It took him a while to find the car on the lot, but after a brief test drive, I knew it was what I wanted and began the sales process. I had a trade in, which had been primarily serviced by them and for which I already had a written offer from CarMax, so I knew how much I should receive for it. He quoted me just over half of that figure. When I pointed out that I could get several thousand more by taking it to the CarMax just up the road and had a written offer from them for that specific amount, he went and got his sales manager, who offered to drive me there and pick me up afterwards, but that they wouldn't match what CarMax offered. I was a bit surprised that they didn't want a nice used car to sell for themselves. 6 years old, top of the line, reasonable mileage, and serviced by them specifically. But again, cut them more slack than they deserved. When we got to price, things really fell apart. He quoted me a price that was several $1,000s higher than what they displayed on their website. When I showed him the printout, again with the noticeably lower price, he looked to the sales manager for guidance. The sales manager immediately took the line that the price listed includes all available rebates and special offers, and you may not qualify for all of them. I was now frustrated and showed them printouts from the other dealers in the area that had a similar price shown and said that if they weren't willing to honor the price listed on their website, I'd just go to the next closest dealer that had that model in stock at that price. His response sealed the deal for me. "Go ahead, waste your time and go to a competing dealership. We won't hold it against you when you come back here." I told them, "Okay, thank you for your time. I'll go to competing dealership," and got up to leave. No one stopped me, and the receptionist said nothing as I walked past her out to the parking lot to drive to the other dealership. When I got to the competing dealership, it was already around 8 p.m. as I had spent a fair amount of time at the first dealership, and Northern Virginia traffic has never been known for being reasonable. I had a salesperson approach me immediately upon entering the dealership, and I explained, I've just come from first dealership and want to buy particular model of car. Both of you have that car in stock with the options I want. They wouldn't give it to me at the price shown on their website. If you will, I'm ready to sign on the dotted line right now. The salesperson immediately took me to his office, verified that they had the car, and confirmed that yes, the price on their website was accurate and I could walk out the door with that price. We started the process, and when we got to the trade in, I further explained how the other dealership tried to lowball me on the trade. He said if I could produce a written offer from CarMax for the price I mentioned, they would match it. I gave him that paperwork, and without any further discussion, he agreed they would match that, and we moved on to financing. I hadn't gotten this far with the other dealer, but I had already lined up financing through my credit union. He asked if I'd be willing to see if his F&I guy could match or beat that figure. I agreed to let him try, and he came back with a rate that was 50 BPS lower. Needless to say, I was already very happy with these people, but that definitely sealed the deal. Right as I was finishing the paperwork, the salesperson from the first dealer texted me to ask if they would give me the car at that price. I responded back that they would, and I was finishing up the paperwork at that very moment. He immediately tried to call me, then texted me saying he'd give it to me for $500 less. I responded to his text stating that I'd already signed the paperwork and he had lost the sale. Once the paperwork was complete, the exceptionally pleasant and helpful salesperson at my new dealership spent an additional half hour after the dealership had closed for the night running me through some of the features of the car and showing me how the infotainment system worked. This was completely above and beyond what I expected, as I thought I'd just be reading the 300-page user manual to figure it out on my own. I drove home that night with my shiny new car, a very happy camper. The next day, I decided to rub a little salt in the wounds of the first dealership. So I drove there straight from the office. For context, I work in the banking industry, and at that point, it was still very much business formal dress. I showed up in my suit with my briefcase and had people falling over themselves trying to help me, including the receptionist who clearly remembered who I was midway through me asking for the particular salesperson I dealt with the day prior. She offered me a seat and asked if I wanted some coffee while she went to get him, and I politely said, "No, thank you, I won't be here long." She somewhat quietly, sheepishly responded that she'd be back with that salesperson very shortly. There was a couple in the waiting area who seemed a bit displeased that they'd been waiting for a salesperson, but I got one the moment I walked in the door. No more than a minute later, the salesperson and his manager came out. The salesperson recognized me and, with a look of defeat on his face, shook my hand and asked how I was today. Before I had a chance to respond, the sales manager spoke up to introduce himself, as if I hadn't spent an hour and a half with him the previous day. After I reminded him that I was there yesterday, and he had said it would be a waste of time to go to the competing dealer because they'd never give me the car I wanted at the price shown on their website, his demeanor very quickly pivoted back to the snotty, insolent person I dealt with the previous day. He proceeded to ask, "Well, did they?" with a bit of a sneer. I said nothing, but turned to the side and clicked the remote for my new car so the horn would give a few chirps. He said, "Good for you," in a rather curt tone and walked away, leaving the poor salesperson on his own. I shook that salesperson's hand, thanked him for his time, and turned around to leave. The receptionist spoke up as I walked past her and asked in a rather chipper voice if I needed any further assistance. I politely responded that no, the other dealership had provided me exactly what I needed and I was all set. To make things just that little bit better, as I passed the couple sitting in the waiting area, I saw them exchange looks with each other that seemed to say, "Perhaps we should go to the dealer I mentioned." I said nothing further and walked out of the building wearing the smile of a winner. Ugh, gross. I hate when people get treated a certain way based on how much money they appear to have or not have. In my experience, truly wealthy people are less likely to be flashy about it anyway. I love that OP went back to make a point. Hopefully, the couple went to the other dealership. There are two really funny anecdotes in the comments. Let's check them out. Dirty Rugger said, and let them know you won't be bringing your car there for maintenance. The real moneymaker. TechNot added, definitely. Would have made sure the general manager knew their service department lost a loyal customer because of their sales manager. Meat Shield said, the maintenance department is what keeps car dealerships afloat. At every dealership on planet Earth, the maintenance department is always jumping no matter what happens in the sales department. Bunny Slayer 64 shared, LOL, reminds me of a story about my maternal grandfather. Back in 1962, my grandmother was due for a new car and asked if she could have a Cadillac. No problem. My grandfather went to the top Cadillac dealer in the county, found a suitable car, and after negotiating the out the door price with the salesperson, wrote him a check for the full amount of the car. Sales guy looks at the check and looks at my grandfather. Crickets. Will you excuse me for a moment, please? He walked out and shortly returned with the sales manager, who explained, Mr. S., the price you negotiated was for financing the car through our dealership. If you want to pay cash, the price will be X dollar more. Remember, this was 60 years ago. My grandfather tore up the check, walked across the street, and paid cash for a 1962 Chrysler Imperial. I love that car and was sad when my parents decided to sell it during the 1970s energy crunch. It did get crappy mileage. Oman said, if you are looking for a nice new car, dress like you can't afford it. The better dealers will still treat you like a real person. The crappy dealers will blow you off. Don't buy from the latter. Boots 311 added, side story, I do hardwood flooring for a living. I was talking to another guy at a class I attended. He told me this story about this lady who came in to talk about getting new floors. She showed up in this old, beat-up truck, so he assumed she didn't have a lot of money to spend. So he made his suggestions, and she just said, okay, that sounds good. He found out later that she was a millionaire and wanted all kinds of fancy flooring put in. But she just went with what he said. So a $20,000 job would have been a $150,000 job. So he said, as the saying goes, never judge a book by its cover, or truck. Our second story delves into the gig economy with a story titled, Don't Want to Pay Me for My Work? All right, I'll undo it. Not exactly sure if this is malicious compliance or pro-revenge, but here we go. I am naming the company name because I've had many issues with them and everyone should be warned. So, have to say this first. Beware of working for the delivery service Shipt. For those that are listening, that's the word ship with a T on the end. Today, I picked up an order for delivery. It had gone promo, money added on Shipt. It was for delivery in a town that is 15 minutes from the store of purchase. All right, not too bad for $16, especially since I live within 10 minutes of the town I was delivering to. I take it. I go to the store, receive the groceries, and I'm on my merry way. I send a text to the customer that I'm on my way and will reach them before blank time. No response. So I give a quick call. It does a weird thing and ends. Doesn't even go to voicemail. Huh? Whatever. I sent them a text. Get to the house, knock. No answer. Leave the bag outside the door and walk away. Make it to my car, start said car. Woman pokes her head out the porch door as I'm about to leave. You are very lovely, woman on porch. Thank you for your kindness. Waves me down, looking highly confused. So I, unfortunately, stop the car and get out. Woman asks what this is. Why your order, ma'am? I say, looking all happy. I didn't order anything, she says. Oh no. Did anyone else in the house? Nope. Oh no. So there is a wrong address on the delivery. I've never dealt with this before, and I have to leave to catch a movie with friends in 30 minutes. Cue me going door to door at each house on that small street while reaching out to Shipt support. And while they're trying to call the customer again. Does the same weird thing with the phone. Give up on that. Proceed to knock on doors. Nope. Nobody's. All right. Ship's suggestion? Just drive back and return it. No, Shipt. I'm a delivery contractor. I am not a volunteer, nor am I a charity. I am hired by you to fulfill deliveries. As far as I am concerned, I have delivered to the address on file. I am not reaching into my bank account to correct someone else's mistake. For the total extra 30-minute round trip, I'll need $10 on top of the initial pay. Thanks, gas, for being so expensive. No, they say, we'll give you $8.10. No, I say, I have plans in now 10, what should have been 30, mind you, minutes that I will now miss. $8.10 will not cover the gas and wear and tear for the extra 30 minutes. I will need no less than $10, or I will leave them on the curb of the noted delivery address, 580 Belanking Street in Van Dyke off. We'll give you $5 and can't do any more than that, they say. Wait, I say, $5 on top of the additional $8.10 to make $13.10 on top of what I'm being paid, or just $5? I want everything in writing specifically because I knew Shipt was going to do exactly what they did next. Oh, yes, $13.10, but we can't do any more, they say. Fine, I'm returning it to the store now, I say. Go to the store, do the whole return process, get in contact with Shipt as they directed me to with the requested information. Get a message on my phone from Shipt to the effect of, your order has been canceled and $20.80 issued to your account. What? I contact Shipt, say I'm confused, say it looks as though they were only giving me $5 on top of the original order payment when they said I would be compensated $13.10. I was told, oh, we won't give you any more than $5. But you already said. Is there someone else I can speak to? Nope, $5, take it or leave it. All right, fine. Don't want to pay me the agreed upon wage? That's a breach of contract, meaning you never actually paid me for this return. So what did I do? I marched right back into the store, asked the worker who had taken the return what she had done with it, snatched the bag up, strode up to a manager, informed them of what happened, and told them since I wasn't being paid to return the groceries, I would be taking them back to the last place. I was contracted and paid to deliver them, 580 Blanking Street in Van Dyke. Told him if he wanted to be recompensed for the groceries, he could charge Shipt, as they were not willing to pay to have them returned. Messaged Shipt from my car informing them of this and gave them 30 minutes. Yep, plans definitely ruined, it's now 2 hours later, to rescind their recension and pay me what they actually agreed to and owed me. Had to reach out 2 separate times because the first girl, despite me being very polite, would not go to anyone else, such as management, to ask for an exception to this policy, considering they had literally told me they would pay more. They actually had the gall to ask if I had taken items I had returned, and all I had to say in response was, "Did you pay me to return them?" Second girl was much more helpful. Reached out to her team to see if anything could be done. Shipt still wouldn't be swayed, but I thanked her profusely for at least trying. So, in the end, they said they wouldn't do any more than $5. I told them, all right, I reject that offer. Just pay me for the original delivery. $5.80 is where they'll be. You can pay another Shipt shopper $15 to come get them. Drove back, it was on my way home, dropped them off, and left. I'm not a charity, I don't work for free, and I certainly don't pay to work. I'm going to be messaging ShopRite corporate directly along with the New Jersey Labor Board because this is not the first issue with wages I've had with Shipt. And honestly, ShopRite should seek compensation from them. Have fun paying for the more than $13.10 of groceries that are now rotting on the curb, Shipt. Side note, to anyone who may say, you're being entitled, no, I am not. It is not entitled to expect an agreed upon wage. It is extortion to expect me to work for less than agreed. Imagine you accepted an order from a delivery service, fulfilled that obligation, and suddenly they decided to pay you less than half for that completed order. Or you're working at a job and they suddenly cut your pay without any notice or agreement upon your part. As I explained to them, I never would have returned the groceries for $5 because it wasn't my mistake. Would have returned them, no problem, if it had been. And I would be paying to return them, plus the missed plans, plus the lost time. So no, I am no way in the wrong. And I don't care what anyone who thinks otherwise has to say. What a nightmare. I'd be super annoyed if I were OP too. He was totally justified in digging his heels in on this one. Total aside, but I had a hard time with all the Shipt in that story. Let's head to the comments where OP makes a naughty confession. Sweaty Willingness said, "Good for you, frack that noise. The more people that stand up to BS like this, the better it will be for everyone. People already bend over backwards too much for unappreciative companies." OP replied, "This is very ironic coming from someone whose screen name is Sweaty Willingness, but yes, I approve of this message." Sweaty Willingness said, "Haha, rest assured my only actual sweaty willingness came in the form of clicking accept on Reddit's random name generator. I often forget that is even my screen name, so I was confused for a second." User 987 said, "These gig companies put the cost of running their business on the backs of their drivers and in return treat them as nothing more than a number. I'm looking forward to the revolution when companies that hire drivers as employees become the norm rather than the exception." Schmath80 said, "Just had a court case in New Zealand where 4 Uber drivers have been determined to be employees and not self employed contractors. Under New Zealand law, that entitles them to minimum hourly wage rates, paid holidays, sick days, and other benefits. Watch this space." Rainator added, "Same in the UK, I believe. They also banned Uber from London because they weren't following those other employment laws. Shocking, really, considering how few we have in the UK." Crafty Illustrator said, "You're a better man than me because I would have taken the groceries and gone on my way." OP replied, "Let's just say that if I did such a thing, I wouldn't be stupid and post about it online. Of course, that is a hypothetical if scenario." Sensei said, "I see you, naughty naughty." OP replied, "I don't know what you mean. It was just a hypothetical." Our third and fourth stories were super short, but too hilarious to miss, so we're going to do them in a double rapid fire. Pew pew. Next up, McDonald's compliance. So, once upon a time, I was a McDonald's employee. They always put me on drive-thru because I was white and spoke fluent English. Yes, that's pertinent. Literally everyone was Hispanic, and only like 2 people besides me spoke fluent English. So I always winged it when greeting customers, and they always liked me. They'd ask about me when I was off, give me little gifts for brightening their day, etc. My manager came to me one day with a script and demanded I spoke from it. I repeatedly did not use it, and eventually she got frustrated and threatened me with a write up if I didn't read from it. Here comes the malicious compliance. There was a typo in the script that referred to McDonald's as McDonald's. So I'd repeatedly say it, and because everyone has a headset, they'd all hear it. And the staff would chuckle because most could read English and they all got the script. My manager was not amused. She told me that I needed to say McDonald's, and I reminded her that she demanded I read from the script exactly what it says. I got sent home that day, and they cut my hours. I still feel like I won. Definitely a win in my books. Leave it to a power-hungry supervisor to ruin a good thing. Let's check out some of the top comments. Remote Hovercraft said, "I was a McDonald's manager for overnights. One time, this new crew member kept taking orders like, 'Welcome to McDonald's. How may I McHelp you today?' Eventually changing all the words to have Mick in front of them. 'Are you going to be paying with McCash or McCard?' And some of the customers would respond with McThank you, etc. I didn't stop him." OP replied, "That's legendary. I love the idea of Mick helping people." JJ Bugman replied, "And do some Mick compliance." Cool Beans Chili said, "I bet she was the one who didn't proofread the script properly, hence why she sent you home and cut your hours. People don't like to be reminded of their laziness or stupidity." OP replied, "I was literally like, you told me to read this word for word and not deviate. I'm just doing what you wanted." And she's like, "Go home." Cool Beans Chili replied, "But I want to keep working at McDonald's," is what you should have said after she said to go home. Give a toddler's answer for the toddler's spelling. Order said, "My wife does a retirement job at McD's and got a customer complaint for calling someone dear. Also for calling someone ma'am because they weren't that old. My wife is 64 and the lady was clearly older than her. She just ignores the minor reprimands as she is one of the very few that show up and work." Shig23 said, "The best thing about getting older is letting things like that just roll off your back." Our last story is the follow up shot and is titled, "It's Not My Fault, but I'll Find a Solution." When I was in college, I got a second job during the summer at a restaurant. During my interview, I had told them that I could not work specific days because I was working at my other job. On my third week, they scheduled me to work on my off days. I had talked to them and they gave me a list of numbers of other servers to find someone to take the shift. I was able to get my shift covered. The next week, the same thing happened. Now, I hated this job. I've worked plenty of restaurants before, and this one was a cry before work, during work, and after work kind of job. I told the manager that the day I had been scheduled for was a day that was not in my availability twice now. The manager said, "Well, I'm not saying it's your fault, but it's not our fault, so you need to find a solution." I contacted every employee at both jobs. No one could cover either shift. I worked my next day shift at the restaurant, and as I was cashing out, I told my manager I was done, and this was my last shift. He goes, "So you're just not doing the 2 weeks?" And I said, "You told me to find a solution, and I did." Definitely agree with OP's approach here. If it wasn't necessary to keep the job, I'd have walked too. Let's check out the comments where someone provided the ultimate response OP should have added. Algie said, 2 weeks? Why would I continue to do my job for 2 more weeks when you can't even bother to do your job at all? Terra Corruption said, clearly, best response, but should also have added, "Now, I'm not saying that this is your fault, but it's not my fault." He is Dead Jim said, "This is a lie that needs to be repudiated. The employee is not responsible for covering their own shift. That's precisely what managers are supposed to do." Rainbow Narwhal said, "Yeah, every place I've worked is you book it off and they figure it out. If they screw it up, they figure it out. If you want to switch a shift or take a day off after it's been scheduled, then it's on you to find someone to take your shift, but only then." Scott Dot said, "If they were scheduling you outside your availability, they were trying to get rid of you. That's one of the methods used." Wings of Sky added, "Or they are just being pricks. Some people are just scum beyond any other words." Zero Ingenuity added, "There's also the old maxim, never presume malicious what can be attributed to stupidity. I've worked for plenty of managers who weren't malevolent, just literally incapable of doing their job right." If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.